On Friday, the Congressional Budget Office published an estimate of the Democrats' Build Government Bigger plan. Of course, President Biden calls it Build Back Better, but that estimate confirmed that the bill's true cost will be $4.9 trillion. Moreover, this tax and spending reconciliation bill will add $3 trillion to the debt. And this is coming from the CBO, which Democrats once heralded as the gold standard. Well, yesterday, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki made it clear how much weight the CBO carries with the Biden administration now.
But it's important to understand that when anybody raises a question about this new CBO score, it is a fake score about a bill that doesn't exist. And we should really focus on the actual bill everybody's going to vote on and considering in Congress right now.
Is it really a bill that doesn't exist? Here with me now to talk about the latest CBO numbers and what else we need to know about the current reconciliation bill is Representative Ron Estes, who's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Kansas. Congressman Estes, welcome to Washington Watch.
Well, great. Thank you, Joseph. It's good to be here.
We're glad to talk to you. You heard Jen Psaki's comments there regarding the CBO estimate, the numbers that came out last Friday. Is this a fake score for a fake bill?
No, it offsets some of the magic math that they were trying to use in terms of talking about what this big spending bill was. They proposed a lot of gimmicks along the way in terms of things like having the taxes for 10 years, but only saying the programs were going to last for 1 year and then they'd expire. And so what that did was it just said that the actual cost of the bill was too low. What Senators Graham and Cornyn asked was for the Congressional Budget Office to come back and say, well, if those programs lasted the entire 10 years as well, what would be the true cost to the American taxpayers? And that's where it came back and said, well, it would cost $5 trillion almost, and over $3 trillion, roughly $3 trillion would be added to the national debt. And that's what would happen if these programs were continued. And we know that, once you start one of these programs, this child tax credit, for example, is slated to cost $185 billion for 1 year. If you extrapolate that over 10 years, the CBO said it would cost over $1.5 trillion. And just like Ronald Reagan said, a government bureaucracy is about the only thing that will last forever. So we knew those programs aren't going to go away. They'd started 6 months ago as part of COVID relief, and now they're saying, oh, we need another year. And in reality, it's going to be another 10 years and be permanent. And so we need to make sure that we're truly honest in terms of the things that we bring forth and how much it really does cost us and cost the country.
Yeah, Washington, D.C. is known for having lots of birthing centers and very few funerals. Lots of things get started and nothing ever goes away, right? Do you think that the White House's spin on this, and with respect to the numbers and kind of the conflict they seem to have with the Congressional Budget Office, does their attempt to really lower the number just demonstrate that they don't believe that there's a real appetite for what this bill actually does?
Yeah, they're really trying to use what I've been calling magic math, and they try to make it sound like it's more presentable and more recognizable and more appealing to be passed and voted on, instead of talking about what's the real impact on America. And you can go program after program in terms of talking about some of the things that are in this bill. It's like I said, the taxes are going to be out there for 10 years. $400 billion in taxes on small businesses, which are going to hurt the recovery as we come out of COVID. It has mass amnesty for illegal aliens. It starts a new expansion of the IRS and basically adds another 80,000 IRS auditors to come after us. And originally they wanted to talk about looking at every $600 transaction that's in anybody's bank statement. And so those are the types of things that they're wanting to do. They even have removed the Hyde Amendment, which has been the standard for 40 plus years, that says the American taxpayers should not have to pay for abortion, particularly abortions on demand.
And let's talk about that for a moment. When you brought up the Hyde Amendment and Senator Manchin, who does seem to be at the center of all of these negotiations in the Senate. And he has said consistently over the last couple of months that he would insist the Hyde Amendment be included in this for it to have his support, because he's always been a supporter of the Hyde Amendment. And of course, President Biden once was throughout his entire congressional career until he became president. But do you think that issue will continue to be a sticking point?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the Democrats want to be able to point that they've got some victory. And so they're going to, like I said, this bill has 150 different new programs. So I'm sure at the end of the day, they will accept having a few of those programs and allow the Hyde Amendment language to stay in and protect the American taxpayers through that process. That probably would be what they would agree to. The problem is then all the bad programs that stay in whatever they agree to with Senator Manchin are things that put in place and just tend to never go away. I mean, government programs just don't end.
And another issue that the White House is dealing with is the fact that these numbers from the CBO came out at the same time as these inflation numbers. And the Labor Department confirmed the highest spike in consumer prices since 1982. Do you think this makes the White House's job of getting this through the Senate more difficult?
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, the root cause of inflation is too much money chasing the same amount of goods. And we've spent trillions of dollars over the last year. And I'd even make the argument that, in early 2020, some of that money was needed as COVID was shutting down everything. But that's just been a continuation since then. And to add another, what amounts to $5 trillion of spending and borrowing through the Federal Reserve is going to not only bankrupt our kids in the future and their kids and their kids' kids, but it also is going to drive up inflation today. And we saw the November inflation reports were over 6%. Inflation is such a terrible tax on the middle income and low income folks, because if you're working a job, your paycheck doesn't change day to day or week to week or month to month, depending on the rate of inflation that comes through. Right. And I know the Federal Reserve is at least now recognizing that inflation is here to stay, that they're not calling it transitory anymore. So they're going to have to start making some of their effort to work and help control that, which is one of their two responsibilities, is to control inflation and make sure that we don't punish the working class folks who they get hit hardest in terms of when they go to the grocery store or go fill up their car with gas and have to pay the heating bill for their home.
President Biden remembers and was around in Congress during the Carter administration, and inflation was one of their big challenges. Maybe not the thing that sunk the Carter administration, but certainly one of them. And he knows this, is there anything in your mind that might be giving him pause as he contemplates potentially throwing trillions of more dollars into an economy that already has a shortage of goods, and understanding what inflation is already doing? Do you think there's any part of him that might be reconsidering and thinking that this might not be what we're supposed to do?
I really do hope that President Biden remembers and thinks about how bad inflation was during the President Carter years. Basically, we're seeing a recreation of a lot of the problems that we faced during the 70s. Inflation is such a painful impact on so much of the working class. We're seeing so many disasters around the border and national security. I think that it would be good for the country if President Biden would recognize what's going on and say, this is too much right now, and need to back off on trying to push through and ram through this big spending program.
What kind of timeline is the Biden administration working on with this bill?
Well, the Senator Schumer, who's basically trying to ramrod it through the Senate, has said over and over again that he wants to get it done by the end of December. I just don't see how that's possible with the calendar the way it's set up, with the holidays coming up and Christmas is next weekend, and by the time that they can run it through their process. And, you know, the Senate parliamentarian hasn't even ruled on the things that are not allowed in a reconciliation bill. Things like some of the illegal alien provisions and some of the other things. They call that the bird rule. And in terms of making sure that it only deals with spending, taxes, and the deficit and the debt ceiling, and instead of adding additional programs. So the Senate parliamentarian hasn't even defined things that should be thrown out of what bill was passed in the House. So I just really think that the clock's running out, and there's really not a pressing need to get that done anyway. I think we need to be more deliberative. We need to make sure that when we pass legislation, that it is well thought out and affects, because it does affect all of our country, and we need to make sure that it is good and implemented in a good fashion.
Is there a plan B for the White House if Build Back Better, as they frame it, doesn't get passed?
I don't know what their fallback plan would be. They've talked so much about so many of the provisions that are in there, including on the tax side. I could readily see that they may just end up saying, well, let's make sure that we just increase taxes. And that could be their approach that they might want to do, and increase the corporate tax rate and increase the individual tax rate and declare that their victory. The problem is they've tried to create so many new programs through this process, and the way they've had to cobble together this bill and get the votes through the House as well as the Senate is there's so many programs in there just to attract certain votes. And so it's going to be hard for them to come back and say, okay, what's a fallback plan? What is their plan
Congressman
B?
Estes, I'm going to have to jump in because we do have to go. We're up against a hard break, but we greatly appreciate your time and look forward to next time. Appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you.